Well, we welcome you to the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center on this 6th day of April 2023 for our Conversations and Coffee program. April, a time of celebrating spring, a time of Ramadan, Passover, Holy Week, Easter. So let's welcome in this special time the month of April and our artist celebrating this time, Abstract and realist painter, Linwood Lonny Nichols. Ceramic artist, hand-built collage mixed media artist, sculptor, and writer. Lonny's work is expressed. His working is expressed in a wonderful book, From the Counterculture to Artist. Lonny shares that his book covers 1968 until now with a bare bones of 50,000 words so far, So far. Lonny took off from high school, I love this, in 1968. And how old was he when he took off? 16 years old. He hitchhiked around the country until 1976 with a brief stint in the Army from 1971 to 1973. Lonny says he lived on a sailboat for 4 years before coming here to Columbus in 2006. Wow. Lonny writes, "My mother is a painter of some repute." She was invited to show in an impressionistic biennale in Italy and had a 6-foot dunescape in the Florida governor's mansion. It's a dunescape.
Dunescape. It's in Florida mansion, sand dunes on the beach. 6 foot by 6 foot dunescape.
Isn't that wonderful? Your mother, and you're going to tell us about her.
Is it going? There you go.
Has inspired you,
Yes,
no doubt.
definitely.
And Lonny decided to paint when he came to Columbus. And this coming to Columbus was quite a gift for us. In 2012, he was at the Columbus Sidewalk Arts Festival and walked by the open bay door of the Cultural Arts Center. You know what door that is, the bay door? Yeah, the one going along. Tell us how that. I asked him to describe this morning.
Well, the first year that they had it down here, because the previous years they had the Sidewalk Arts Festival over by the CCAD and all that. Well, the first year they had it down here, I was down here, and there's a big bay door down here that, the roll-up door kind of a thing, and the Arts Festival was here, and I walked by it, and I looked in there, and I saw them doing sculptures and stuff, and so I went right inside it and signed up. So
took ceramic classes. I love it. And Lonny chooses abstract art, he says, because there's room for growth. He does realism to interest some who don't care for abstract, but prefers to stimulate the imagination. He's been in 24 shows, 2 solo, including Imagination Inspiration in July of 2017 for our Loft Gallery exhibit. And the Conversations and Coffee connected with that. And showing at the Secret Gallery, a recording studio at 503 West Walnut Street in the Franklinton Arts District. And as you were describing for me, tell me about that work.
Okay, there's a recording studio called Secret Studio over there in the Franklinton Arts District, and they wanted something inspired by music, and so I have these paintings with lots of little, I've got pictures on the phone if you're that interested, but anyway, it has lots of little dots forming interlocked loops like Celtic knots. And the one that has sold has a mass at the bottom and a mass at the top, and I called it High Notes and Low Notes, and inspired by Dance to the Music by Sly and the Family Stone,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
love it.
And that's sold. So now I got to take them for another one for next Friday when they have the opening for it, and it's going to be called Notes of Harmony, and it's Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and it's the same thing, an accordion knot kind of thing. So
Oh, wonderful. Well, congratulations to you on all accounts.
thank you.
We're so happy to have you with us. Take it away.
Am I ready?
Lonny,
Okay.
Linwood, Nichols. Huh?
And thank you, my kiln room friends. Thank you for coming, and thank you guys for coming. And oh boy, pressure's on. Okay, I was going to start out with the book I'm writing. I've got 50,000 words so far, and that just basically covers from 1968 when I started hitchhiking around the country to today. And it's my determination that I'm going to keep writing until the book gets published. So this will be in it, and. I started out sitting outside the counselor's office with a bunch of other people that I didn't know, only one person I knew, and we said, well, let's just leave town. And so we, I just started being a hippie radical. I did because that was the most popular thing, and so I didn't know what I was doing actually. And so we all got on, 6 teenagers got on the highway and hitchhiked to the coast, and looking for a place to stay in the cold, we tried to join a carnival, and it was really, really cold, and they let us stay in a box truck because we hadn't taken any jackets or anything. And then the next morning, we all called our moms and went back home. See, so that was my start, and then after that, I have a thing. A book I'm reading about writing a book says you need to write down your plot points when the plot changes direction, so you can organize the structure of the book. And so I started doing that, and then it's got that hitchhiking adventure and my first job. My first job when I was in the 10th grade was at a Red Lobster. I figured if I'd cooked, I'd never go hungry, so that worked out. And then the plot points are New Orleans, Denver, Kansas City, Manson's Story, Tony and Drag, downtown Orlando, Albuquerque, the Jemez Mountains in northern New Mexico, California, Second Atlanta Pop Festival, Orlando, South Carolina, signing up for the draft, quick trip to California, joining the Army, AWOL, caught in New Orleans, Jacksonville Beach, busted, back to Fort Jackson. Okay, and that's just in 1971. So I hitchhiked around more after I got out of the Army until 1976. After 1976, I slowed down some, but I still hadn't stopped until I came here in 2006. And my discharge papers from the Army in 73, the psychological profile says, vagabond lifestyle, idealization of various religious dogmas, acute identity crisis. And so that's kind of the theme of my book, And what I'm basically writing is I read a lot of books, and I read a lot of history books of the art scenes in the major cities like Paris and New York and Los Angeles, and I feel that Columbus is poised on being a central art place because we've got all this financial stuff coming in, and we're the 15th largest city, and so I think that there's a real opportunity for artists here. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write about my firsthand account of the counterculture, and I'm writing about the firsthand account of the art scene in Columbus, because all the other art scenes I've read about in those big cities, every artist or every person writes about them in a different manner, and so you catch something about the relationships of the artist, how this person saw it, and the relationship of the artist, how this person saw it, and then you put them all together and you get an idea of the whole scene. Well, that's what I want to contribute to the scene, of the art scene of this town. I want to be one of the voices among many, I hope, that writes about how the art scene in this town grew and became something worldwide, which I hope will. But that's kind of something different too. It used to be, I think, that there was an art scene that led the world in Paris. There was an art scene that led the world in in New York and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think that's the way it is anymore. I think that the way that the art scene works is there is still the investors' art scene where you get millions of dollars, but then there's still art scenes in those viable, wonderful art scenes in all those big cities and in our city. And then that I call them verses out of a science fiction show. I like to watch universes, art universes, and because there's a abstract universe and there's a realistic universe. You know, the people that just like that kind of art, and so that's all they know about, and that's all they like. But that's all right. That's why I go across many verses in mine. Let's see. Okay, and the other thing I was going to think in my book that I'm reading how to write the book, many of those books that I read are just narratives. They just talk about this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's not what I want to write. I want to write a cohesive book with a story arc. So the story arc will be, you know, my radical firsthand account of the counterculture and my state of mind as a young hippie radical and not knowing much and how I learned how to mature as much as I have anyway up until now, you know. And so we'll have a story arch through that book, I hope. So that's what I'm working on with that. And then I have where she said, I think realism has fulfilled itself. Realism, there's like de Kooning does abstract expressionist realism like his women. And then there's impressionistic realism like Monet and my mom. These are here are my mom's art over here, and these are picture albums of my art and my flower gardens. If anybody's interested in looking at those, just jump up and get one. But anyway, you got the impressionism, and then you have photorealism. So the realistic type paintings have been fully explored, I think. But I don't believe abstract has. I think there's still potential to do something new and different in abstract forms. And my intention is to inspire people's imaginations, because I think the imagination is very, very good for the human race. And so if I can do anything to inspire someone's imagination, that's what I want to do. I don't hardly name many of them because I don't want people to say, oh, this is what he means by that. It's not that. I want you to have your own meaning, and your own meaning is just as valid as my meaning, and I like that. Let's see, what else? Oh. Huh? Okay. If you insist. I like to put the various heights on it, and I do other types of canvases on there, and I have the frames, and I have mats on it. That's pretty much what I use to do the surfaces, because I do that primarily to create an experience. Clement Greenberg was a New York art critic in the 50s, and he said that the life of art is an experience. And so I'm trying to make these things an experience. I use metallic, I use day glow, I use some of it is neon or black light and flat paint and glossy paint. So when you walk, the light makes the thing change, and also the height differences makes that change to where it's not meeting anymore, and that creates more of an experience, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to make an experience in my work, and it's in my abstract work like this is this is one composition, abstract composition, and this is another one, and that's another one, and that's another one. So you have 4 different abstract compositions here, because I put, like you can see here, there's a dark green on this surface, but if you flip it around, there's a brown, so that changes surfaces. I have 2 6-foot sculptures I'm working on made out of, one of them is made out of stretchers for canvases, and another one is made out of frames that they're 6 foot tall, about 30 inches wide, and about 26 inches wide this way, so I can get them through the door, you know. But I paint them different colors on every side, so they're different. They're outdoor sculptures, but I paint them different colors on every side, so I get 4 different compositions. But I do realism sometimes, like this guy, and this. I grow a lot of flowers. There's my flower one here, and this is a tartan dahlia that I grow that I like. And so, yes, sir.
How you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. I know Lonnie.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I looked at the table and I was like, where'd that bear come from?
I love
And
that.
you just like glossed over, like, oh, I do some realism, but I suppose I've seen figures and stuff, but that bear looks like, is that like all pointillism? Is it like
No. It's just regular paint. If you want to break it down, huh?
Why did you paint the bear in the snow? Like some reason
He's not-
your
he's not in
abstract
the snow,
things-
he's on
I
a
get
waterfall.
more sense of that.
He's on a waterfall. He's fishing. See? Yeah. Okay. He's.
Is it from a source image?
Huh? Yeah. I like bears. It's my totem is a bear, and so I found a picture of him, and the water is metallic paint. So if you move it changes a little bit, but see that's on my hat. I got new business cards, and it's on my business card. You see, and they sold me a hat for $8.50. So I painted some stuff on there for my hat, but.
I like that for what, $8.50?
Well, Vistaprint. You go to Vistaprint, man, and
So the bear is you.
yeah, and I also have an owl in this fashion, an owl, a nice owl. Oh, you've seen the owl, haven't you? Because I had it. I had it in your kiln room for a while on the wall, and I got a red-tailed hawk. So I do that, but there a lot of them are last year and this year in here, but I've got these books going back to 2010, and I have this. This is my first year of my flowers that I grow on my 1/8 of an acre, and I've got a lot more coming up this next year. This is called Red House. I know a lot of you don't know what that is, but that's a Jimi Hendrix song, you see, and then there's the fact that this is clay. Okay, ceramics are clay. But this one, and this one are not clay. These are paper clay, and those are made out of paper and clay, and they're much lighter and much stronger, according to the book, than just regular clay by itself. So I do those as well. Yes, ma'am.
Could you explain what paper clay is? I never heard that term.
Yes, ma'am. Paper clay is about 80% paper. 80% clay and about 15 to 20% paper. You take paper and I use toilet paper because it's easiest to work with. You can use any kind of paper, and you put it in water and you break it down till it's just mush. And then you mix it in with your clay. And then when it cooks out, the DNA of paper, the coils, are inside your clay then. And that's like corrugating cardboard. It makes it stronger, like paper made into cardboard with corrugations, and it's much stronger. Well, the same thing happens when you use paper mixed in with clay, and it's easier to work with, in my opinion. And it's easy because you can, in regular clay, when you put them together, you have to use the similar moisture content. With paper clay, you don't. You can put dry clay and wet clay together, and if you do it right, it'll stick just like normal. And let's see what else about it. Oh, one of my friends that's a clay person, also taking stuff at the Ohio State University, says one of the professors makes furniture out of paper clay. So it's nice and strong, and it's big, but it's much lighter. Because if you would have made something that big out of regular clay, well, then you couldn't hardly move it around, But so that's what paper clay is. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
How big can you make stuff out of paper clay?
You can make it as big as you've got a kiln for.
Okay, and how light is it?
It depends. You can the ratio varies. And if you want stronger and to last longer, you're going to put a little bit less paper clay in it. If you want it lighter, then you can put more paper clay in it. So it varies with whatever you're doing, whatever your end product is.
Can you make a fountain out of it?
Yes, sure.
And it would not, not deteriorate.
Well, it depends. If you got any you have to take into account cold. If you put it outside, then you're going to have to take into account winter. You're going to have to take into account any exposed surfaces, and you're going to have to make a higher fire if you want outside. Now Eric here is a clay expert, so if you got any technical questions about clay, you ask him. He knows a lot more than I do. Mine's about like that.
What type of paper do you use?
I use a toilet paper myself, but you can use any kind of paper as long as it breaks down. When you put it in the water, you know how toilet paper breaks down in water into mush, and then you stir it up real good, and then that's what you use. You take a bucket full of wet clay that's moist and runny, and you mix them together, and you take a drill and you mix them together real good. I mean, really, really good, and then you let them dry out. And then and another thing about paper clay that you do with regular clay is you let a sheet of regular clay dry out, and that's it. You got to recycle it. But with paper clay, you can dip that in water and let it re-soak, and then it's ready to go. And it comes out, and it feels like a piece of cloth. And you can take that thing and you mold it around stuff, or put two pieces together. It's fun to work with. It's exciting, yes, sir.
How long did it take you to figure all this stuff out about paper clay? How long from start to finish when you heard about paper clay?
I read a good book and I could do it right away, mostly. But
So, like, give us a timeline.
Okay, yeah, it'd probably take to figure out doing all the things that I learned I could do with it, because I read the book, and the book says you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and I said, okay, sure, but I hadn't actually done it. And so that's the kind of person I am. I read something and I do it. I got on my sailboat and read about a sailboat. I bought a sailboat and then I did it. And I did the same thing with a motorcycle. I read about the motorcycle and I got on it and I did it. That's how I do stuff. And so now I'm writing a book. So I'm reading a book about it and I'm writing one. Yeah.
Okay, so the paper clay.
The paper clay.
So you read a book.
I read.
Okay, so now you're going to start working with it.
Yes.
And then
Take me about 3 months to get good enough to where I could do all the things that I wanted to do, to know for sure about putting the wet and dry together, and how much it will stand up, and how thick it's got to be to stand on its edge, and a lot of technical details. It takes you about 3 months.
So 3 months, and you've got the technical figured out. And how long did you make these sculptures? Like that was more like a year or so. that you actually worked
I
with
made
it.
them for a year. I made paper clay stuff for about a year, 13, 14 months.
Okay, so you alluded to that. I know some things about clay. I watched him do this, and what was most fascinating to me is that I had only read books about it. I never put it into practice, so I got to watch Lonny put this all into practice and figure it out. And I didn't even know what you just said, where you can take a slab of it that's dry.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys caught this, but you can get that wet, and then it's like a piece of paper. I never knew that, and that makes sense. Now I see your sculptures, how you form
That's how I
it.
did those faces that I did. I took a sculpture somebody else had done, the face of a sculpture, and I did those 3 women sculptures of them. I took one of the tin pans, the baking pans that you have, the aluminum pans, and I filled that up with water, and then I slapped one of my hard pieces in it, and then I took it out and mushed it onto it. That was it. It's cake. Yes. I'm sorry, she
One
was
more
next.
question about, does the amount of paper you use with the clay determine the strength of the piece?
Yes, ma'am. It does. It does. And there's a good book. I can look it up. I forget the name of it, but it told me everything I needed to know. It's Paper Clay Art and Practice, and you look it up on Amazon, and it costs about $18. And it'll tell you all that stuff, and it'll tell you all about the ratios and all that kind of stuff that I don't even bother with because it's too much. It has all the little scales and charts and all that kind of stuff in it. But I don't even bother with that. I just do it. Yes, sir.
Can you raku?
I don't know. I don't think so. You probably could, but I didn't try that.
Okay.
That's an answer.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I don't know. I didn't try it. I didn't have the opportunity. Yes, sir.
How much time does it take when you put it in the kiln? How much time does it take? Does it take more time than regular clay? Or
It does not. You treat it just like regular clay. It takes the same glazes, it takes the same amount of firing, and it's the same method. The bisque firing, and then the glazing, and then the glaze fire, just like regular clay.
Time sitting
Times
in
are the
it,
same.
it's the same.
Yeah. The base clay that you use, if you have a base clay that says you need this amount of time to fire that particular base, well, then that's what you do with the paper clay as well. But we always used, where I was at the kiln room, the cone 6 stuff. But you could do the same thing with cone 10 or however you wanted to do. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. Let's see, what else? Okay. Have narrative stuff. Can't be a hippie without some social commentary. So I have one of my social commentaries. I have several that have to do with addiction. But this is not gun rights. Don't any of my right-wing friends here, don't worry about that. It's not gun rights. This is just proliferation. There's just too many guns around is what I think. And so that's what this is about, just too many guns. But I also did a couple of them about addiction that have been in a couple of shows and things, and I enjoy that. Types of finishes, supports. Okay, I pretty much got those. Okay, so here's one. I was outside and I was working in Asheville, North Carolina, at a Cracker Barrel, and me and some cooks after work were standing around a creek drinking beer like people in North Carolina do. And one of the cooks said, "Lonny, tell us a story. Tell us a story." And so I said, "Okay." One time I was hitchhiking out of Denver, Colorado, and I got picked up by a young man, and he was very straight. Now I've always worn my hair like this all my life, and so it was longer and black, so I looked like Cousin It, right? And so he told me these stories about, I work for the government, but it's a secret. I can't tell you what I do, but I have cars, and I got jet skis, and I got boats, but I can't tell you what I do. And so I told him, well, you know that guy who just got arrested, Charles Manson? He said, yeah. I said, that's my brother. He says, I'm going to this exit right here. And so the crowd of cooks I was sitting with, one of them elbows the other one and says, do you know how long ago that was? And so I said, I'm not telling you any more of my stories and stuff. But a lot of the things, I need a drink again. I'm not used to doing this much talking. A lot of things, I've always been a go-with-the-flow kind of a person. So one time we were sitting around in Royal Castle, which is a little burger eatery in Orlando, and one guy says, let's go to Albuquerque. And so, okay, we got out and hitchhiked to Albuquerque. And when we were in Albuquerque, I heard that there was a place in the hot springs in the Jemez Mountains the hippies go, and it was wintertime. It was below zero sometimes, but it's a hot springs, and it's about as big around as from here to the wall. But it says 103 degrees all year round. So I went up there, and there was a landslide close by, boulders and rocks and stuff. And so I made a tunnel and put a fireplace at both ends and camped out there for a couple of months. And you sit in the hot springs, and the hippies would come up there with bags full of inebriating substances, and we'd sit around naked in the spring. And then when you stand up, it's so cold that the water evaporates off your body just like that, and so you get dressed and you're fine. So I'm up there camping, and it's on the side of a mountain, and it's in a national park, and you can look down into the crevasse down there, and then up on the other side a little bit, there's a parking lot, and then I saw a station wagon come, and a guy and two women and two little children come down, and they come up, and they're looking at the hot springs and having a good time. So I invite them to stay in my tunnel overnight, and they invited me to go to California. I said, sure, why not? And so I go to California with them, and they're living on a boat. They have one boat, 35-foot captain's gig, and then another boat, another 35-foot captain's gig that they raised off the bottom of the river, and they're building them into a catamaran to go sail around the world and stuff. So I stayed with them for some time before I went back to Orlando. But that was only a couple of months, and I used to do that a lot, to lots of different things, and so that's the kind of stuff that's in my book. You see. Let's see what else we got. Okay.
Cake with you?
Yeah, they stayed in the tunnel with me, and then they invited me the next day to go to California with them. So I said, fine.
Accommodations can you offer a family in a tunnel?
Not much. I had a fireplace at both ends, and it was below zero, so I could offer warmth. You see.
Did you have beds and pillows?
No. I had a sleeping bag, and they had their own blankets and stuff in the car because they were traveling from California. So they had their own stuff. Yes.
Did you keep in touch?
No. I didn't keep in touch with anybody my whole trips, hardly, except for my relatives.
Where'd you get your mail?
That didn't. Yes, sir.
Who do you want to play you when you have your movie? What actor you want to
I have
play?
no idea. I'll be croaked by then. I don't know. Because I'm not done yet. Huh?
Where are you sleeping?
Where am I sleeping now? Well, okay, before I came here, I lived for 4 years on a sailboat going up and down the East Coast. Okay, I met a woman. Of course, it happens. And she was from here. And so I followed her up here. And, that was in the summer. And the next spring, we were broke up. And then I had sold my boat, so I had no boat. I had no woman. I was going to get me a cowboy hat and write a tune, but I didn't do that either. And so I've been here ever since. And then a couple of years later, my grown daughter, who is now 45, came up, and she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. So I was working for Netflix, and I saved up $14,000 and bought a house in Hilltop, which is the Hilltop Gallery. So you can come to my house, and it's floor to ceiling. There's on my card there. Everybody grab a card, and I got like a salon style paintings in my house, and I got sculptures all over the place and stuff. So to answer your question, I live in my studio. Okay, now where was I going with that? Okay. Oh, I was going to do a little army shtick. Okay, I went in to sign up for the draft, and of course we sat in the draft and sang Alice's Restaurant. If I'm sure many of you people are old enough to know that, we sang Alice's Restaurant. And then the next year, came back from California. I just went to California and put my foot in California and hitchhiked back. I went from Orlando to California and back 12 times hitchhiking. But I went and came back, and I didn't have anything to do, so I went and joined the Army. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I went and joined the Army, and they sent me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I was going through boot camp. Now, this young lady, well, I was 18, and she was 26, and I had met her in the commune in South Carolina. She was with a biker dude, or a street commando, we called them, because they didn't actually have bikes, but but he was mean to her, and I couldn't stand that. I had a double-edged axe that I carried around in the woods, and I told him if he hit her again, I'd split him from his head to his toe. So she became my girlfriend, and she was having and when I was in the Army, she had a car wreck in 1965, and the engine had come in and destroyed an ankle, and so they fused the bone from the leg to the ankle, and she was having to take deteriorated bone out every year, and we didn't have any friends but junkies and crazy folks, so I had to go take care of her. She was having that operation, and the Army wouldn't give me a leave, and so I left, and I went AWOL, and then when I was in Jacksonville Beach, where we were living, I did a quick trip to New Orleans to Mardi Gras, and they caught me. And so they sent me to Fort Polk, Louisiana. And in Fort Polk, Louisiana, they gave me a direct order to go back to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and put me on an airplane. And when switching planes in Atlanta, Georgia, I got off and hitchhiked back to Florida. So the next time they caught me, they took me in shackles on my arms and my legs, and a guy with a Browning automatic shotgun walked me back to the company quarters and stuff, I was real bad. But I was just AWOL, no big deal, So that was my illustrious career. Now, my son...
Might this work here have any relationship, this gorgeous hat? And tell us about that.
This one is the Red House. There's a Jimi Hendrix song. My baby lives in a red house and whatever. But no, I just was doing a three-dimensional thing because these are wall plaques. This one and that one, they hang on a wall. I've got about 15 or 18 of those. I've sold a couple of them, but I have them both in abstract and realism. So
How do you go about this, creating these two?
I wing it. I just start. Same thing with my paintings and this. First I'll build a platform, and then I'll just take a piece and say,
Went up so everybody could see it. It's
this?
gorgeous. Is it too heavy?
nah, it's not heavy at all. It's just holding these both. But no, I just build a little platform, and then I just take and have a bunch of pieces laying around from previous pieces or previous things I've done, and I'll stick that there, and then I'll take another one and stick that there. And I do paintings just pretty much the same way. I'll put something here, and I'll say what color or what shape, because in painting, there's a lot of things that go into painting. You know, all the people who are famous for painting say stuff like you have to have them and your colors in harmony. You have to have various blues to harmonize with the others. Then you also need contrast. You need square shapes and you need wiggly shapes, and those are contrasts. And so I do the same thing with those. I contrast the colors and I contrast the shapes as well as having harmony. And then you have flow. So you have the flowing going along through here that pulls your eye across everything. And that's what this one over here as well. I have this divisions that kind of pull you across to the different subjects that I'm talking about here. And all my art is the same way, well, except for the realist stuff. Yeah, well, this one is contrasting by what's his name? Hans Hofmann. Hans Hofmann was a very famous painter and teacher, and he said you contrast soft edges with hard edges, and so that's what this contrast is. As well as I got the circles and the straight shapes and the various colors, greens to make harmony and things. So there's a lot to it than just slapping it together. But I do it a piece at a time, like this skirt. I put a piece across a mold, and I made this skirt, and then I put a bowl. I made
Up to see the skirt.
And then I took strips, actually like siding on a house, and then I put one strip here, and then I put another strip on that, and then I put another strip on the inside. If you look inside, you can see those shapes and things. But that's how I get this corrugated form on a lot of my stuff. Okay. Then these two are kind of examples of George Orr. Okay, George Orr was a famous potter in 1900 or so, and he's very famous. He's called the Wild Man of Biloxi. He had this big, long, pointed beard, pointed mustache that he'd tie up on his head, and he'd act crazy all the time, and on purpose. He Holmes said that, but he's real. He has little pieces like this that he would throw, and they were very, very thin-walled, and then he would twist them like this, and they're very small and very delicate and very finely made, and the little pieces that fit in your hand are now worth $50,000-$60,000 a piece. So this is my rough as I am as a person. These are my twists, my George Orr twists. I've got lots of pieces like this, and this one is fun too because a lot of times on the inside, I will pour. These outsides are done with underglazes. You sit and you paint on. I paint on 3 layers of this underglaze. I bisque fire it, and then I put on 3 more, and then I put a clear on it. And that's overdoing it, but I'm a suspenders and belt kind of guy. And then on the interior, I just pour a dipping glaze in there because it's much easier. If there's any cracks and things in there or whatever, it covers them right up. So that's what I do to that. And this one is paper clay, so it's much lighter than this. Hold that one up. Okay. But it did.
Kiln in your house?
Ma'am?
You have a kiln?
No. Well, I do, but it's not hooked up. I bought one from him a long time ago that I haven't hooked up yet, but I need to do that. But I've temporarily put my ceramics on hold because I'm trying to concentrate on writing my book, trying to devote more time to writing my book. And like I mentioned to these fellows over here, my lifestyle didn't lend to a lot of Social Security. So I brought all this stuff on the CODA bus. But so I don't. I take things, I put ceramics on hold a little bit so I have time and money to try to write my book because I need to get it done because I'm old, you know. So that's what I'm working on now. But
Process for writing the book, are you trying to capture these stories? I mean, I think it's unanimous that your stories will sell this book.
Yeah.
We'll pre-order a copy, but where are you, like, you said you're reading a book about how to write a book.
I've read several, actually. You know, that was
In the
okay. I've got this particular book is by a Pulitzer Prize winning editor and professor and writer, and it's called Storycraft, and he lays out the structure that you need for a book, for a good book. Like I was mentioned before, that some of the books that I've read about the history of art are just very narrative. There's no story plot to them. They're just, this happened and this happened. We did this, we did that, but nothing happens. You know, I mean, as an overall whole, as an overall story arc. And you need to have a really good book. You need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, and that's what these books say. So that's what I'm doing. And what I'm doing now is I've started with what he calls plot points that I read earlier. And you just take and you write in an outline form the structure of the whole book. And then that way, and I put the page number of, okay, the bit about Denver is on page 12. And so I can go and I can look at this, and I can go through the story about Denver, and I can go onto my computer, and I can embellish or reword that particular story, and that's what the plot points is for. And so I'm working on that, and I have to do the whole book, and which I have 50,000 words for, as I said, and what I'm doing is I want to write to where I'm a young person, a teenager, wild and crazy, mostly crazy, and where I am at mature-wise. And so I go through the book, and while I'm writing all these stories, for instance, the one about the carnival. Okay, at the end of that story, I wrote, and I might change it, is that being prepared is more important than impetuousness.
story about a carnival?
You missed that already? Yeah.
Everybody else knows. Okay.
Yeah. Because my first hitchhiking when I was 10 in the 10th grade was we all just decided to leave town very impetuously, and it was in Florida winter, you know, so it got about 30 degrees, and we got out on the road, 6 of us hitchhiking, and they gave us a ride to Stuart, Florida, and it was cold, we didn't know what to do, and so we walked by the winter home of a carnival, and there was a bunch of trucks and carnival rides around, and nobody there hardly. But there was one guy there, and we asked him, could we join the carnival, man? You know, because we needed to get warm. And so they put us in a box truck, and there was smelly blankets in there, and we all got covered up in there. And so the next day, we all called our mothers, and we went home. And so that's the moral of that story is that preparedness, wearing a coat, is more important than impetuousness. So I go, that's how, and so I mature just that much for that story, see? And I'll go through and I'll look at all these stories and I'll say, did I learn anything with that? And I'll put that in there. And then, so the story arc will be my supposed maturity to this point right now because I'm still writing. And the things that I've learned recently, not only does the story about my experience with the counterculture and what happened with the counterculture and my experience with the Columbus art scene and what's happening with the Columbus art scene, but it's also about those effects on me and my maturity, whatever that is, and up to this point. And so I'll just keep writing until I get the book finished and publishable. So it'll probably be beyond this. So this will be probably in the book too.
Tell us again the title of the book.
The title of the book is working title is from counterculture to artists. And if you want to keep up with it, get my card because I'm on Instagram and I'm also on Facebook. And so I always put everything on there. So I try to get people interested. So only 15 minutes. That's good. I can get a drink and see what else I can.
And your Mother continues in her art.
Oh yeah, we can talk about my mom. My mom is Patricia Geary, and she's been an artist all her life as well. And this one is her abstract photos, and this one is her impressionism photos, which she's quite famous for. And this one is her ceramics, and she did a series of ceramics, Celtic ceramics, and so that's one that goes on the robe and holds your robe together and stuff. But she does one of the Celtic gods and things, and she had a show that toured North Carolina with those ceramics for a while. Huh? She's 89. Yeah. So I got hope yet, but I'm working on it because I work out 3 days a week with weights and things because I'm a vegetarian, so I'm trying to get those last years in again. So I don't. This crowd probably knows. Laugh In. Okay, Laugh In. This crowd probably knows Laugh In. There's a guy on a tricycle in a raincoat, and he's pedaling like mad, and then all of a sudden he falls over. Well, that's how I'm going to go, you see. I'm going to keep pedaling like mad until I fall over, but I'm going to try to keep going by my diet and my exercise and keeping busy. Oh, and that reminds me too, the keeping busy business about over in Franklinton Arts District. I don't remember if I told you all of this or not, but there's a place called the Secret Studio, and I've sold a painting there. I think I've already gone through that. But anyway, I did that one, and then on last Saturday, I was over here at the pop-up artist commune at Urban Arts Center. I had a piece there just for the pop-up on Saturday. It talks about artist commune, man. I almost had a flashback. But I went over there, and I did that. And so now I'm doing this. And next Friday, I'll have another painting because the one painting sold over there. So I'll have another painting and another showing on Franklinton Friday next week at I'm not sure if y'all are aware of Franklinton Friday, but every Franklinton Friday is the second Thursday of every month, and they open up all of the Franklin Arts District, and there's lots of places over there to go, hundreds of artists, there'll be hundreds of people there, lots of things to see, and I'll be there, so come on down. What else? Okay. Anyway, y'all be sure to grab a card, and let's see what else. Another good story here.
Have you made a list of all these stories and picked the ones you want to write about?
Well, that's what I did. That's what the first 50,000 words are. The first 50,000 words are from all the stuff, and I went through, and I said, okay, I was in here, and I was in here, and I was in here, and then I wrote all that down, and then I go back, and when I was here, I did this, and when I was here, I did this, and when I was here, I did this, and then I go back again, and I said, this tells it a little better, so I'll write it like this, and that's what I did. Yes, sir.
Do you feel like you're a time traveler?
We're all time travelers. We're traveling forward in time, aren't we?
You're writing this book, and it's like a time travel.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's the point of it. Is the point of the counterculture is because the counterculture is all underground now. It's here, but nobody stands up for it anymore. That's why I want to make you have the identity shows all over the place. Well, I don't see old hippie identity show, and so I want to promote that. If somebody wants to get a bunch of old hippies together, because we have black identity shows, women identity shows, gay identity shows. We don't have any old hippie identity shows. I want one.
Organize it.
I'm working on it. Here I am. Yes, ma'am.
When did you start actually doing your different pieces of art? Because if you're traveling, I'm imagining you can't.
I started my painting in 2006, and I started ceramics in 2012. Other than that, occasionally I would write something down about what happened to me and stuff, and I would stick that away somewhere.
In there.
It's in there somewhere.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
You started ceramics, walking into the Cultural Arts Center.
I did. It was just amazing. Hi there. Come on in if you like. Yeah, that's what got me into ceramics. My mom had a little jewelry kiln in her place in Lake Lure, North Carolina, and I made one piece, and it didn't fire very, very hotly, so it's kind of, and I still have it, but it's a very fragile piece, and that got me interested. And so my mom was doing those ceramics, and so I was interested in it as an art form, and then I walked by and just got enamored with it and came on in and learned this stuff. So that was fun.
I love that you brought up Lake Lure. Our children were at a camp nearby.
At
So-
Lake Lure,
Uh-huh.
at the Boy Scout camp. Okay, that's where they have a gated community now. That's where my mom's house was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? My husband and I, walking, met up with a bear.
Ah,
And I thought of that bear
Yeah.
before we even talking. As you are depicting this bear, wondering if that might be the same place. But we did what it was that the guy told us we should have done, which we did.
yeah.
We just stood there and acknowledged the bear.
They say black bears you can scare, but brown bears and grizzlies you don't mess with.
We just walked by
Yeah.
and walked out, and let me tell you, then we ran. But you don't run.
No,
Yes.
Encounter.
because then you're prey. Yeah. Oh, and to your
The personality in that one.
to your question about how I did this, I started out with the fur, right, with each stroke of the fur, with each colors of the fur, and I took the picture and said it's darker here and darker there, and then I did all the little fur pieces on here, and then I took a brown wash. I took and diluted some brown to where it was nearly water, and that's what gives it the overall brownness of it. That's how I did that.
Like the one we encountered.
Yeah, those are nice bears. He's fishing. He's looking for something to eat. Yeah, that's what they do.
Lonny,
Yes.
do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have a half brother and a half sister. I have a half brother I'm Linwood Nichols. He's Patrick McDonald, and my sister is Dixie Sherrouse. But my sister, she lived in California. We all grew up separately, because of different stepfathers and things. But yeah, kind of.
You guys kind of close, or do you stay in
I'm
touch?
close with my brother. My brother lives down in near close to Mom. He takes care of her. He took care. My stepfather, who's passed now, he got Alzheimer's, and so they took care of him. My brother, my younger brother, he's 60 now, so he's not that young, but my younger brother took care of him for a long, long time, and my mom, and he still looks in on her and takes care of her, but he got Alzheimer's, and they took care of him, and finally my mom and my brother couldn't handle it anymore, so they took him to the VA. And he was at the VA, and in one of his moments of lucidity, he says, "If you don't come visit me more, I'm going to divorce you." He was the third largest beer distributor in Florida, so he had a few bucks, and he didn't do anything until my mom came along and helped him out. And so he said, "I'm going to divorce you if you don't come and see me more often." So bam, she divorced him. Took the summer house in North Carolina. Let the house, the 5-bedroom house in Florida, go with his kids, and then that was the end of that tune. You don't mess with my mom. She's 89, and I don't think I can outrun her yet.
Travels, did you get the daughter?
I got a daughter who's 45 and a son who's 27. Now, my daughter, her mom passed away from diabetes in '87. Okay, so I've had her. Let's see. I met her when I came back at the end of that '76. I went to a Christian school, and I was studying to be a preacher for the first year, and believe it or not, and then after the first year, I decided, man, I just can't live that way. It's not within me to live that way. So I changed my major to a teacher. So I was learning to be a teacher, and that's where I met the mom, my daughter's mother, and we were married from '77 Yeah, 77 to 87 when she passed away. And then later on, I met my son's mother, and she lives in North Carolina now with her husband, and my son lives there, and my grandson lives there with his wife. So they're all in Asheville yet, because my daughter wanted to, not my daughter, but my wife wanted to move to the mountains. So I said, I'll move her to the mountains up there near my mom's house. And so that's what I did. I moved her up there. So. And,
Take us to the flower in front of you there.
Okay.
A good
This
way of coming to.
this is a tartan dahlia. I've got dahlias. One of the young ladies that was in the ceramics class here with me, who's since moved to California, she gave me these dahlia roots, and so I grow these. This is lots of different color ones, and so every year, every spring, I paint some of my flowers, and that's what this is. And here's a book of the first year of my garden flowers, and there's a lot of like I said, I have on these. I go back to 2010. That's my first year of my flowers, and I'm going to have another one this year that's got other stuff in it that's not in this one. Like in this one, there's not my apple tree, peach tree, apricot tree, fig tree, blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries. I don't have any of that in this book. And I got 1/8 of an acre, so it's quite full. My mom says I'm a good Irish peasant stock. That's why I grow a lot of stuff. But I just enjoy it. My late wife, in the early 80s, I had 6.5 acres up on a mountaintop in the Ozarks. And she said, flowers everywhere. I don't have any place to walk. So I grow stuff like crazy. Used to grow other stuff, but I don't anymore, believe it or not.
For you.
I think flowers give you a peaceful feeling, right? So they're peace signs. I'm slipping that in. Yeah. But let's see. Where was I? I almost was going to say something.
This has been wonderful. You have taken us on a journey.
Well, read the book.
Well,
There's much more to come.
and the gift of your itinerant life is coming to us today.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing grace.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is that it? Almost.
Did I sing?
That can be it. Anybody else?